Conor, let's start with the business of the week, really. Owen O'Connell. Why did you want to bring him to the football club?
Yeah, Owens is someone I know for a long time, really now. And obviously, we were on a lookout for a central defender. We wanted someone who could come in the building pretty quickly. I think obviously him being a free agent makes that a lot easier. If you have someone attached to another club, it can take time and whatnot. So I think it was really important just to get someone in and with experience, with a bit of know-how for the level. He's had a real successful last kind of 3 years on the bounce with Wrexham. We didn't want to bring in someone young because we felt like it was an important kind of signing for us in general, if I'm being honest. I think we needed someone to come in the building with a little bit of experience, know-how, and the right type of character as well. So I think he fits the bill from all that point of view.
Yeah, experience and a winner, knows what it's like to achieve promotions.
Exactly that, yeah. So look, there was a couple of opportunities maybe to go younger central defender, but I was really keen on this one being a bit more experienced, so we pushed for that. Like I said, there was a couple of people in the frame to come in, but some were attached to clubs, and then you're looking at maybe the last week of the window, and with our schedule coming up, we're pretty busy. So by the time another player comes in the building, it could be 4 or 5 games gone. So Owen was obviously a free agent, ready to go, and it was great to have him in the building over the last kind of 4 or 5 days.
In terms of, getting involved with the squad, but also being match ready, where is he on that?
Yeah, well, he's kept himself fit over the last couple of months, as I would expect him to do. Look, I had a real good conversation with him to know exactly where he is, and he's worked really, really hard individually to make him in a decent place. Obviously, that's not going to be match fit, but he's trained okay the last few days, and he looks in a decent place. He's playing a 21s game today. Our 21s are playing against Man City. So he's playing a 21s game today, which I was really keen for him to do, and he was really up for it. He was like, no problem, whatever I need to do to get fit, I'm ready to go. Excuse me. And he'll be involved on in Monday in the game as well. So if we can get him minutes at Liverpool to add to the 21s minutes today, that will put him in a decent place heading into obviously the league fixtures.
And presumably for him and for all concerned, the carrot, as it were, is the prospect of a longer term deal in the summer.
Exactly that, yeah. Look, he's a real good age. We've got a lot of games coming up, as we all know, and he's going to be really, really needed. So he needs to get himself in a really good place now over the next couple of weeks. I was also keen for him to get in as quickly as possible because, after Port Vale, we didn't have a league game for 2 weeks, so it's a little bit of a window to work with him. Hence why he's able to play a 21s game, which is important. So yeah, I think he'll be a real positive, a signing for us in terms of on the grass, in around the dressing room, experience, know how to win games of football, and he's a really, really good person as well, which is really key.
Fast early start then to the transfer window. I'm duty bound to ask, is anything else kind of on the horizon in that sense?
Not necessarily in terms of something's going to happen immediately, but I think you can see that we're quite active in terms of players leaving as well. So I'm hoping that will free up some positions to be able to bring some players in. I think the squad needs a shake up. I think all of a sudden we've had a couple of bodies in the door and a couple of bodies leave, and training's got that little bit more of an edge to it all of a sudden over the last couple of days. Owen's come in, Corey's come back, and Corey's always a really good trainer and a really good person and really energetic. So Corey and Owen coming into the building and a couple of people leaving, it's just brought that little bit new energy into the group, and we're hoping that will be the case over the next couple of games, and we're hoping that will free up a couple of slots for a couple of new signings as well.
Yeah, with regard to Corey, then, I mean, his move to Stockport was a question of style, perhaps, rather than substance. So how do you see him fitting into the picture going forward?
Yeah, well, I think it's really clear. I think with Corey, from a tactical point of view, we didn't really need a right wing back / right winger in the summer. Because we had Caelan playing high and wide on the right, and we had Nathaniel Ogbeta playing high and wide on the left as a fullback. But now with the development of Reyes, we've swung it the other way, where Reyes is now the out-and-out winger, and we're going to need a right wing-back width type that Tenai Watson has been doing. So there's a clear reason why we've brought Corey back from a tactical point of view. We didn't really quite need the right-sided one in the summer. That's why Corey went away and went on loan. But now, obviously, with the clear development of Reyes, we've got an out winger on the left, and we need width and a little bit more attacking emphasis on the right. And Corey fits that bill really, really nicely. So to have him in and have him in and around the position with Tenai is going to just give us that little bit of extra depth and competition for them two to battle out for that position, really.
John Russell, yeah, is one of the departees. I think he's up in the summer, isn't he? So that presumably is that with regard to him. He's had an up and down time at Barnsley over the years.
Yeah, I think John's contract is obviously coming up at the end of the season, and John wasn't getting the minutes that he would like over the course of the last few months. I think he's found it difficult because, in my opinion, we've got some really good midfielders at the club. And another reason why he mightn't have been getting minutes is someone like Patrick Kelly's development is in and around John's position. And look, Patrick is a really, really good, exciting player playing out of his skin. And he's got someone in his position at the minute that is just playing at a level that, he can come out with the team. So John's just found it difficult. Best scenario for everyone is that he probably moves on and gets minutes elsewhere, and wish him nothing but the best.
Jackson Smith, speaking of timelines, as we kind of were earlier, much younger player, of course, getting his feet wet in senior football. Where do you see him in terms of his development? Now he's obviously going to Grimsby for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, I just think it was really important for Jackson to get minutes, to get playing, to advance his career and get more experience. I think Jackson has really only had Walsall on his CV in terms of game time and regular minutes. So it was really important for Jackson to go out and get minutes. He trains well every single day, and I think this extended period now to Grimsby till the end of the season will be invaluable for him. And then he'll come back in the summer and we'll assess it, and kind of go from there on that one really.
It has been reported, and of course it is the January transfer window, that Davis Keeler-Dunn is available. Is that correct?
No, I don't think it's as clear as that is correct. I don't think we're going out there broadly and saying Davo is available to be sold. I think that's not right at all, really. But I do think that everyone's got a value, everyone's got a position, and that's at Barnsley, by the way. Or if we went and put 3 million on the table for a Bolton player, no doubt we'd get him as well. So you know what I mean. So I think everyone's got a value, everyone's got a at this level, particularly League One, League Two, if someone comes in and puts the right money on the table for any player, you have to consider it. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that's the case, but are we going out and telling clubs that we're selling Davo? Absolutely not.
Right. So there's not kind of a we are prepared to cash in, as I think it was phrased, kind of scenario with him.
No, I think that's typical. Agents and looking after their clients and trying to get suitors and whatnot. It's typical this time of season, really. Look, the amount of things you see on social media is stark, and if you believe everything that you read, then we're all in a bit of trouble. So, it's I think it's a bit of nonsense, really.
Right, Liverpool then. You've had a break enforced clearly due to the weather, etc. How do you approach this one?
Yeah, just really excited for it, really, to be able to test ourselves against one of the best teams in the world. We expect a really tough occasion, of course, but one that the lads need to be ready for and fully prepared for. I think since Port Vale, we've got a bit of a 2-week window where we're working really hard on the Liverpool game, but obviously working on our game in general, because after this 2 weeks, really, we have game after game after game and won't have loads of time on the grass. So I think we're fully getting prepared for Liverpool and really looking forward to the occasion and ready to hit it head on, of course. But we're using this 2-week window as well to to fine tune our game, to get us ready and in a really good place, to hit the league games head on as well in a busy schedule ahead.
How do you prepare for a game like this? On one point, you've got some of the best players on the planet that are going to be playing on Monday night. Equally, it might be players that certainly outside of football clubs, fans might not have seen a great deal of.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it's a little bit difficult to know the kind of personnel that's going to be out there. You can have a really educated guess, of course, but it's how strong do they want to go, how weak do they want to go, and I mean that with all the greatest respect. Are the big boys going to play, or are they going to go a little bit weaker and kind of play previous teams that they've played in the Carabao Cup where they got knocked out in that round and kind of didn't play any of their main players. So So yeah, look, it's hard from that point of view, but it's one that we need to be fully ready for it and understand how we want to go about it and have a game plan. And I really want the lads to to really maximize the opportunity that's there and express themselves. And at times when we're on the ball, can we play with that courage and play the way that we want to play? But know that we'll suffer and have to sit in a block at times and accept that as well. So yeah, look, we'll have a game plan in place, of course. And I'm really hoping that the lads do themselves justice on the night, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, because this could be a kind of major point in their careers, in the fact that they are going to be able to test themselves, man for man, if you like, whoever they're marking up against, to see how they get on.
Of course, yeah. I think learning from earlier on in the season when we played Brighton, I think it was a really exciting cup tie for us on that night, and we come away from it with a bit of a tough scoreline and probably didn't do ourselves justice from that point of view. So we're hoping to maybe learn a little bit from that. And Brighton went strong on the night, to be fair to them, and they scored some unbelievable goals. But can we do ourselves a little bit more justice and come away from it with a little bit of a nicer scoreline, and put a little bit of a respect on what we're trying to do here at the football club, rather than just turn up and get rolled over and kind of come away from it with just an experience of going there on the night. Can we put in a performance where we come away and go, well done, we showed what we're about, and then move on to the league games in a stronger place.
We're talking about all this. Barnsley's record at Anfield is fantastic. No pressure.
Yeah, I was just speaking about that there with Lewis on the way in. The last couple of times at Anfield, it's gone okay for Barnsley. So yeah, no pressure whatsoever. But no, look, once we put on a good show for us, it's really important. I think the last couple of times we've played Premier League teams, we got done 6 against Brighton, 7 against Man United last year. Can we come away from it and like I said, put in a performance where we can be really proud the lads have done it, put in a good show of themselves, and then move on in a stronger position?
How much does your experience sort of come into the equation here? Because you've been to places like this on a more equal footing, with great respect to where we are right now, and taken on teams like that and played international football. That the quirks, if you like, or the speed, the thought process that comes with playing players like that, it was what you were doing.
Yeah, I think look, the teams I was involved in and got to I was fortunate enough to get to that level internationally and to the Premier League. I think I was in an Aston Villa team that weren't quite at the levels of the Aston Villa team right now, but we were against top teams, of course, and there was times where we approached the games against greater opposition, and you're going to have to suffer. Same with Ireland in top games against some top nations. You're going to have to suffer and be really compact and be disciplined without the ball. But I think the biggest thing for me, in terms of when your team isn't quite at the level of the top players, is the focus and concentration around it mentally. I think that's the biggest thing. You have to go into these games knowing that you're going to go long periods without the ball. You're going to have to really have a focus and concentration and a mentality around, if you switch off, or if you are late to a press, or if you leave your slot at the wrong time, these top players will nullify that. There's no question about it. So having a real focus, concentration and mentality going into the game, that you're going to have to be ultra switched on at all times. And if you can handle that mentally around, your job individually and collectively, then you'll give yourself a chance to have a foothold in the game in some way, shape or form.
Just finally, yes, the break, as it were, Port Vale not going ahead. Is everybody okay? Have injury situations maybe eased at all?
Yeah, I think that's been a little bit of a blessing for us, the Port Vale game, from an injury point of view. I think it adds a game, obviously, to the schedule, which isn't ideal, but we were going to be without a couple at Port Vale. There's no getting away from that, obviously, without going into too many names. Robbo would have not been involved in that game. It gives Nathaniel Ogbeta a chance to get more involved. Excuse me. So he'll be clearly involved now for Liverpool. So it just helps us from that point of view in terms of bodies. Now that we've got a little bit of a break, which is kind of, good for us because we're not blessed with the biggest of squads.
Brilliant. Best of luck at Anfield.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
I hope you well. Yeah, just touching on the signing of O'Connell. There must have been a lot of other clubs who must have been snicking around. I mean, he's done ever so well in the lower division with Wrexham. He's won. He's got in teams of the year. He's a good age. He's a player that that you would expect to attract a fair bit of interest.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of clubs after him, Leon. Yeah, and look, it's my job then to convince him and bring him our way. I had to do that on a couple of occasions, with Reyes in the summer and Patrick Kelly and these guys, and it's my job to show them the platform that they will have and present to them and speak to them and convince them that this is the right place for their development. So I had to do that with Owen as well. And look, it's gone well from that point of view. But really, really happy with the signing. Really good guy, knows the level, played a lot of games, knows how to win games as well, which is really, really important. Like I said earlier on, could have went younger in that position, but was really keen to get someone experienced. And it's up to us now to get him up to speed as quick as possible, to help us as quick as possible as well.
And you can have enough court lads around.
Exactly that. Yeah. So that was a nice connection to have.
Have you got to looking at the sort of market? Have you got a player's got to sort of go out for you to get sort of player existing now? Is it that sort of thing, or is it sort of?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a case of we have to get players out to bring players in, but I do think that, like I said, that the squad needed a little bit of a shuffle. I think there was a couple of people not getting minutes that they would like, and they made that be known. And sometimes when you have people out with the team for a long period of time, you need to kind of move them on to bring new energy in and around the building as well. So I think the people that have left are the right people to leave currently. And we've brought in a couple of bodies, like I said, with Owen and Corey coming back. It's brought a real energy to the training sessions as well over the last couple of days, and hopefully that will be the case with another couple over the next couple of weeks as well.
It's sort of bringing in your boy O'Connell is a senior player. Just sort of looking at your schedule as well, having bringing in senior players who can come sort of in, because it's if you sort of have more bad weather, it's going to be horrendous, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
you play a week on Saturday and then you've got 25 games in. It's only just over 100 days, isn't it? It's like a game every 4 days, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty relentless for us. Look, there's a couple of teams obviously at our league involved in the FA Cup this week, but obviously there's still 3 or 4 or 5 games in our league, so that's another game that we have to catch up on in certain teams. So we could quite possibly have 5 games on hand on some teams, which is going to be pretty busy for us. So yeah, look, we know that our schedule is going to be pretty relentless. I think after Reading, really. So we go Blackpool, have a free week going into Reading, and after Reading we have Saturday, Tuesday until probably mid-March. So it's going to be pretty relentless and full on, and we need, people in the building that can handle that, and that tends to be the more experienced ones. And then we need a depth in terms of the squad that, people will need to be rotated as well. So it's a fine balance and a fine margin to get it right, but we're hoping obviously by the end of the window or by leading into Reading, we'll have enough bodies to be able to cope with it.
Yeah. You've got pretty good memories of Anfield. I know you were in the Derby side, and I think you were at the same level as Barnsley, and you gave them a big old scare a few years ago. I mean, you may have just got edged out, but you got something out of that night, didn't you, really? And that's what Barnsley have hopefully got to do, isn't it?
Yeah. It ended poorly for me, Leon. If I'm being honest, I missed a penalty, so you didn't quite look into that as much as. But yeah, no. Look, we were at. I say that very lightheartedly, mate. But look, obviously, we suffered a lot on the night, and they brought on some big boys like Firmino and stuff like that, and we suffered a lot on the night. But we were really disciplined in our approach, and managed to get it to a penalty shootout. And obviously, look, they got the upper hand on that, and they got through, but. The one that you look back on with real fondness in terms of, there was a big Derby away attendance, and, they're cheering you on to get to the penalties and whatnot. So yeah, look, I've had a couple of, appearances against Liverpool. We played Liverpool at Villa Park. We were winning 1-0 until the 98th minute, and then they scored 2 late on to beat us 2-1. So yeah, look, very, very fortunate to have played against these teams and the top players, over a space of a couple of years in my career. And I'm really looking forward to the lads to be able to do that as well, because of a lot of people in that dressing room that won't have experienced a top level, stadium, occasion, players. And I really hope that they really enjoy it and put on a performance that they can look back on with real pride.
That's no issue, really. I mean, you young players, you play the Miles and the Blandys of this world. so much out of the day and sort of take it all in really, and but just not just go there with their autograph book or to swap shirts. Just try and sort of show themselves in the best possible light. Those sort of players.
Exactly, yeah. And I think Vimal, off the top of my head, is one of the few that played at United that night. I think Philo played maybe. Luca played, but obviously Luca would be suspended. So yeah, there'll be a couple of lads who will have been fortunate enough to experience a big stadium and a big occasion, but there'll be many in there that haven't. So yeah, look, hopefully like I said, the last couple of times we've played big teams over the kind of the space of a year, Brighton and Man United, we've kind of come away from it with a bit of a drubbing. So hopefully, we can do a little bit better from that point of view off the back of Monday night.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you finally, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago that sort of where Barnsley are at now, in the nicest possible way, you said they're not a sort of powerhouse at this level anymore. They're sort of, I suppose a few years ago, they were you'd think bottom end Championship, top end League One. I suppose now you just sort of is it fair to say just a sort of a strongest League One side trying to sort of make that jump to the next level?
No, I think that's fairly, and I think I probably meant that from not size of a club, because your size of your club obviously is the same, but from a financial point of view, we're not blessed with gonna be able to blitz the league or kind of overpower certain other teams that have got more money than us. I think we need to realise that, and we're trying to wheel and deal, just like many of the teams at this level, to make us as strong as possible. So look, from the outside, I think the fans obviously know that we're a big club for this level, and that won't change. But understand the kind of financial position as well, that we're not blessed with the biggest of budgets, and we have to wheel and deal just like kind of anyone in and around our position at this level.
It just shows it's more of a medium long term job, isn't it? Really, it's not just a case of getting back to the champion. That's it. It's sort of realigning and building the club again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to take time. We want to build step by step, and that's why we made a plan in the summer to go that little bit younger, and can we gain really exciting players to hold the mantle of the club for a longer period of time, and build from that. And I think what's really important as well is that we're looking at players in the window currently, and they're looking at Reyes, and they're looking at Patrick Kelly's, and they're looking at Blandy's, and we can clearly show that we're giving people platforms to go and play and to express themselves and to enhance their career. So that is definitely helping from a transfer window point of view. Definitely when we can show clear evidence that what we're saying in the summer it is coming true.
Okay, all the best, Conor. Sorry about bringing the penalty.
Nah, don't worry.
I'll do my research next time.
Not a problem whatsoever.
Right, mate.
Cheers.
Conor, how are you? John Fallon from the Examiner.
Oh, yeah.
How are things?
Good, thank you.
Good. Just a couple, if you don't mind. You mentioned there about your sort of January window reshuffle and Owen coming in and Corey coming back. Can I just ask you about Neil Ferrugia? I think it's a year this week since he joined the club, and it's fair to say it probably hasn't quite clicked for him.
Yeah.
Like, where do you see him at? Is he part of your plans, or would he need to go somewhere to get minutes, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for Neil to adapt to this level. I think he's had a couple of injuries as well, which has set him back at a certain period. I think at times he's had a couple of cup games that he's done really, really well. And at other times, he's found the level maybe a little bit more challenging and difficult. Then he might get another injury. I think he's just found staying really consistent challenging. But what I will say is that there's definitely a lot of ability in Neil, and he's definitely trains well a lot of the time. And you always look at him and go, this lad's got something. So I think Neil has found minutes regularly hard and difficult. But for the time being, he's in the plans, but probably knowing that his minutes are limited currently.
And just more broadly, you've spoken about your influences in terms of managerial coming up through the ranks, and the disciplinary side of things coming from Roy Keane, I suppose, being one of the early influences. Have you had much dealings with him since? Have you come across him since you've got the job?
No, not really. Look, Roy's very, very busy, and I'm not sure if he's keeping an eye or whatnot. But no, look, I'm watching him from afar now on the podcast every week, and he's unbelievable viewing and an unbelievable man and unbelievable personality. So no, look, not much contact at all really, but yeah, still a very fond memories of Roy when he was my coach and manager with Ireland and manager at different clubs, and gave me the opportunity to come over to England when I was a 16-year-old boy and he was manager of Sunderland. So an unbelievable memories when he was manager of our captain, of Manchester United, and I was a big United fan growing up. So yeah, special times to be able to say that I got to know him over the years.
He made his debut at Anfield, so he's probably relishing another Anfield battle for you.
Yeah. Look, yeah, that's obviously a long time ago now for Roy, and yeah, look, special player, and to have someone like that who I got to know over the years and a fellow Corkman is something that's pretty nice.
And just finally for me, just again, sort of broadly speaking, you're very young for a manager, 34. Like, have you had time to stop and think about this? And did you still, if this was sort of 4 or 5 years ago, did you still see yourself playing rather than going leading the team as a permanent manager? Cool.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to stop, to answer you bluntly, really, if I'm honest. I've gone from retiring just over a year ago to, assistant manager to interim to manager, and, just before your eyes, it flashes by, and all of a sudden I'm going to Anfield as the head coach of Barnsley. So it's something that I'll probably look back on, over the next kind of period when the next break comes, whether that's the summer or whatnot. But yeah, look, I think the last couple of years of my career, I was planning for this. Obviously, it accelerated quicker than obviously planned, but one that I was ready to hit head on if an opportunity come, and one that I'm really, really passionate about. Got a huge. I lost my fire a little bit towards the end of my playing career, but my fire now is lighting bright to want to be a successful head coach over the next 10 to 15 years. So yeah, look, it's something that I'm really passionate about now. I'm obsessed with the game, and hopefully I'll have a decent crack at it to be successful.